CEO discovered his intern sleeping on the streets. What he did next was truly transformative. Michael Hartman, the sharp-suited CEO, swept through the city's vibrant streets, the evening air chilly against his skin. The launch of his company's latest product loomed on the horizon, and with it came the relentless pressure to uphold his late father's legacy, a legacy steeped in integrity and brilliance. He glanced at his watch, anxiety creeping in. He couldn't shake the feeling that expectations weighed heavier with each fleeting moment. Then he saw her, a small figure curled up on a park bench, a backpack clutched close, fragile against the chill. No, it can't be. As he approached, his heart dropped like a stone. It was Lily, his bright intern. All those late nights working in the office, juggling her classes and aspirations, now she was living on the streets, her reality stark and haunting. "Michael?" she whispered hesitantly, glancing up, eyes damp with vulnerability and fear. He felt a rush of conflicting emotions: anger at her circumstances, guilt for not noticing sooner, and a drive to do something, anything, to help. "What happened?" he asked, barely managing the words. Her confession of family troubles and financial burdens tore at him, anchoring him in a shared vulnerability that stirred deep memories of his own past struggles. He wanted to pull her into his world, to offer her a chance. The decision came swiftly but painfully. Without hesitation, he offered her a temporary position at the company. It wasn't just about money, it was a lifeline, a chance for mentorship. But the moment he stepped back into the suffocating office filled with elitism, doubts began to swirl. Whispers of privilege versus merit floated like ghosts around the boardroom. Did he just jeopardize everything his father built? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With each moment in those glass-walled conference rooms, the tension escalated. Colleagues eyed him warily, seeing Lily's presence not as an opportunity but as a threat. They questioned his motives, tossing around phrases like upholding standards and meritocracy as if they were sacred tenets. The soul-crushing weight of their dismissive glances made him flex his fists at his sides. Would they force him to choose between friendship and his father's legacy? He needed to act. In a crucial meeting, Michael took a chance, urging the team to consider Lily's programming prowess. He laid bare her talent, cracking through the condescension like glass, revealing not just her skills but the potential for her to disrupt the tech landscape. Tension hung thick in the air, disbelief cascaded through the room like an electric current. As his colleagues began heated debates over their precious status quo, Michael felt his heart racing. The moment crystallized, intensifying the struggle within him. Embracing Lily meant grappling with the fear of forsaking a legacy, stepping into unknown territories filled with doubt and potential backlash. But the murmurings of his team echoed louder, stoking the urgency to reclaim his purpose amidst their fears. Could he withstand the pressure? When the meeting ended in chaos, a single thought clenched painfully in his mind: was he courageous enough to redefine success, not just for himself but for Lily, too? Shadows loomed on the horizon, and Michael stood on the brink of change, but the storm was just beginning. The aftermath of the meeting left Michael shaken. He returned to his office, the door clicking shut behind him, a sound reminiscent of a prison cell locking. Alone, he grappled with a whirlpool of thoughts. Had he ensured Lily's future or merely added fuel to the fires of disdain in the boardroom? Watching the sun dip lower through his office window, the shadows lengthened like his doubts. He leaned back in his chair, closing his eyes briefly as he sensed the weight of expectation pressing down on him. Memories of late-night discussions with his father surfaced, where integrity and compassion intertwined with ambition. How would his father respond in this moment of uncertainty? The flicker of regret ignited within him as he opened his eyes, realizing that his father would have embraced vulnerability rather than shun it. As evening deepened, a soft knock pulled him from his reverie. It was Lily, her brows furrowed, uncertainty palpable in the air between them. "I didn't mean to cause trouble," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. Michael gestured for her to sit, his heart swelling with a mix of protectiveness and determination. "You're not a problem, you're an asset," he replied, his voice steadying, crafting a newfound resolve from his earlier chaos. They spoke for hours. Michael learned about her ambitions, dreams that glimmered beneath the weight of her current reality. Lily's plans to innovate software, her relentless drive to dismantle barriers within tech, resonated deeply with him. With each word, her enthusiasm rekindled his conviction to redefine success, not as an inheritance to be maintained but as a foundation he could build alongside her. However, the looming specter of dissent from the board began to materialize as he shared his vision with her. They needed to present a project that would showcase her abilities, a chance to win over skeptical colleagues. Working late nights together forged an electric synergy. They pushed through late-night coding sessions, brainstorming ideas that blended her fresh perspectives with his strategic insight. Everything changed the day they decided on a collaborative project that reflected their joint vision. They would create an app designed to enhance the lives of underserved communities, utilizing technology as a bridge rather than a barrier. As they developed the framework, excitement surged through Michael. This project had the potential to not only validate Lily but to fortify his leadership in the company. But doubt soon crept back in, amplified by the cold glances in passing hallways, the comments echoing behind closed doors. With discussion of an impending board meeting, anxiety clawed at him. Could he present the project, defend it passionately, and face an inevitable backlash? At that moment, he realized this wasn't just about professional aspirations. It echoed back to his own journey, the struggle between his inherited legacy and his ethical convictions. Would he dare to expose his vulnerabilities again? Would embracing Lily's journey be worth facing the ire of the board? As they prepared the presentation, Michael found himself at the intersection of fear and fortitude, a crossroads he never thought he would encounter. The day of reckoning approached swiftly, and he understood that the true test wasn't merely about the project but about the man he would choose to become. In that pivotal moment of reflection, he resolved that if leading meant walking into the fire, he would do so, not just for his legacy, but for the promise of his own identity. The clock was ticking, and he was primed for confrontation, but one question lingered ominously: would the board's response ignite a transformation or a downfall? The next morning, Michael arrived at the office before dawn, the hushed hum of activity underscoring his anticipation and dread. He flicked on his desk lamp, illuminating a stack of notes and the burgeoning project proposal. The dim light reflected the duality of his excitement and fear, a flickering testament to his internal conflict. Would this project serve as a stepping stone to a more authentic version of himself, or would it unleash a storm he wasn't ready to confront? As the hours rolled on, Michael rehearsed and revised, his mind racing through every possible objection the board might hurl his way. He knew the stakes were high, not just for Lily's future but for his own redemption. When Lily arrived, carrying a cup of coffee and a fiery spark in her eyes, a fresh energy filled the room. She was unafraid, and that invigorated him. "Let us make this count," she said, determination radiating from her like the morning sun. Together, they practiced every line, every point of data, channeling their synergy into a force that felt unstoppable. The clock hands moved relentlessly forward, the boardroom awaited them. As they stepped into the crisp, formal space, Michael's heartbeat pulsed in his ears. Each figure at the table wore an expression ranging from curiosity to veiled skepticism, their collective posture a fortress built on tradition and apprehension. He opened the presentation with fervor, laying out their vision to innovate and uplift. Michael watched the board members closely, assessing their reactions as he articulated their strategic goals. Lily's section came next, her voice bright and confident as she outlined the app's functionality and broader implications. Within her words, Michael discerned the fragile remnants of the young woman who doubted her place against the board's formidable presence of entrenched power. But then came the questions. What's the expected ROI? One board member demanded, his tone biting. How can we be sure this aligns with our bottom line? Michael clenched his hands at his sides, a jolt of frustration coursing through him. He had to remind himself why they were doing this. It wasn't just for profit margins but for a future he believed in. This app represents a shift in how we approach technology. It's about building bridges, not profits, he countered, feeling the words pour out passionately. Yet, did it matter if that sentiment wouldn't resonate with the cold metrics the board favored? As the questions turned sharper, insecurities lanced through him. Was he truly prepared for this fight? The tension was palpable. It wasn't merely a critique of the project, it threatened to dismantle the foundation he had begun to build with Lily. Feeling the weight of every gaze, he decided to shift tactics. Instead of justifying the figures, he shared a personal story, his father's values that had molded him, the lessons on integrity over profit, how he saw himself mirrored in this app. Raw vulnerability coated his words, and he saw the flickers of surprise among the board members. Would they connect with this human side of his leadership? The room grew quiet, and uncertainty filled the air, a shared vulnerability suddenly binding them. Had he dared to take the leap that would change everything? But then another voice broke through the final obstacle, a board member infamous for conflict. So, you're willing to gamble this company's reputation for your own vision? Defiance surged within him, undeterred by fear. He stood without hesitation, summoning the courage he had cultivated during those long nights with Lily. This isn't just my vision, it's ours, and we stand to define our legacy through our choices from this moment on. With the board's skeptical air thickening around him, everything felt balanced on a knife's edge. The definition of his success was unfolding before him, revealing whether he would emerge as a leader true to his values or succumb to pressures that had already stifled so many. As their gazes locked, Michael braced himself for what would come next, knowing that the board's response could alter the trajectory not only of the project but also of his growth, a transformation ignited by challenge or a potential downfall that threatened to silence his voice forever. What would this confrontation reveal about him? The boardroom's silence expanded, stretching like taut string ready to snap. Michael sensed the tension, vibrating beneath the surface, a tangible weight that pressed on his chest. Their expressions, curious, skeptical, or outright hostile, converged on him, but he refused to retreat. He was here to fight, not just for the project, but to redefine his own story. Moments passed as if frozen in time. He met their eyes, each blink a small victory against the inertia of disbelief. Finally, the board chair broke the spell. "You've made a compelling argument, Michael," she said, cautiously. "But vision doesn't pay the bills. Can you address the operational risks?" A ripple of anxiety flashed through him. He had anticipated this roadblock, yet it still gnawed at his confidence. They wanted metrics, projections, the hard data that could solidify their investment. But how could he reduce human potential to mere numbers? This was more than an app, it was about agency, innovation, an awakening. "Risk is inherent in any revolutionary endeavor," he replied, leaning into his own discomfort as he steadied his voice. "But it's our willingness to embrace it that defines success. The app has the potential to resonate beyond financial charts. Think of the young talents, like Lily, poured into an idea that serves the greater good." He glanced towards her, seeing her nod of encouragement. "Are you suggesting we weaken our margins for a feel-good story?" Another board member challenged, crossing his arms tightly. Michael felt the heat of frustration rise but redirected it, channeling it into resolve. "No," he responded, calculating his next words carefully. "I'm suggesting we fortify our reputation by investing in meaningful change. If we champion innovation, we can lead the market, not just survive but thrive." He saw a moment of recognition, perhaps even the possibility of a shared belief. He pressed on. Imagine being the company that prioritizes impact over revenue for once. There's a world beyond the balance sheet, and our employees and consumers are yearning for transformation. The resistance in the room began to thaw, tiny fragments of doubt crumbling under the warmth of passion. But still, one voice remained an unyielding thorn. You're asking us to abandon sensibility. Your personal journey may inspire you, but we have a fiduciary duty to our shareholders. I understand, he replied slowly, the weight of his words settling deep. I am not asking for blind faith. I am advocating for a calculated risk that aligns with ethical progress. The internal conflict roared a battle of ideals versus obligation, but he leaned into the tension, merging the two. Ethics are as valuable as dollar signs. The air shifted, dissenting emotions danced around the table. Doubts transformed into contemplative murmurs, the conversation pulsing towards an uncharted future Michael could almost taste. His adrenaline surged, but uncertainties lingered. Had he swayed them or merely stirred the pot? As he tried to gauge their expressions, he felt an unexpected hand on his shoulder. It was Lily, her presence grounding him amidst the whirlwind of ideas and stakes. Her fierce gaze and slight smile infused him with strength. Thank you for believing in this, Michael, she whispered just loud enough for him to hear, grounding him in the moment. But as they debriefed briefly after the presentation, the feedback remained mixed. They viewed his perspective, the human element, as just a sliver of hope against prevailing skepticism. Michael knew that this was only the beginning, a small crack in a wall that needed to be entirely dismantled. As they walked back to their shared workspace, he pondered the implications of the board's hesitance. Today had uncovered layers of his own potential, but had he truly begun the transformation he yearned for? Michael, Lily interrupted his thoughts, her expression more serious now. What if they say no? He felt the familiar rush of dread clawing at his gut. It would be easy to retreat, easy to walk away, but he couldn't. Then we regroup, we refine our plan, and we push forward. I won't let fear dictate our path, he said, determination reshaping his resolve. But as doubts swirled in his mind, a troubling thought took hold. What if this rejection was only the first of many challenges, unforeseen struggles lurking ahead that could either forge him into a leader or break him entirely? What if the real test was yet to come, a confrontation with himself as much as it was with the board? The evening settled heavily around Michael as he paced through the dimly lit hallway, the soft hum of fluorescent lights buzzing above him. The boardroom confrontation had peeled back layers of his resolve, revealing doubts he thought long buried. Each footfall echoed his deepening uncertainty. Had he truly delivered his vision, or merely scattered seeds on barren soil? Michael stopped, resting his hands on the cold surface of the conference table, contemplating the residual murmurs circulating in his mind. The conversation with Lily had ignited sparks of determination, yet the flicker of doubt remained. Had they truly understood the potential of his proposal? He needed to convert abstract ideas into tangible outcomes. It was time for a different approach. He returned to his desk, shaking his head as he contemplated an endless stream of emails populated with demands and routine reports that clamored for his attention. Those tasks felt hollow now, overshadowed by a grander vision. He opened a blank document, the cursor blinking expectantly, urging him to pour the chaos swirling in his mind into coherent strategy. Convincing the board would require more than passion, it needed a tactical framework that married their financial anxieties with his vision for change. Here, he would sketch out a plan emphasizing metrics and benchmarks while weaving in the core values and ethics he was passionate about. The next day, as dawn cracked against the horizon, Michael found himself in the cafeteria, sitting across from Lily. There was warmth in her presence, a reminder of the young minds bursting with ideas, the very essence of the company he envisioned. I'm refining our pitch, he started, pushing a steaming cup toward her. How do we make it more appealing to the board? They need proof, tangible proof. Lily's brow furrowed as she sipped her coffee. You mean numbers? Exactly. How many users are we targeting? What's the projected revenue in the first year? If I can present a blend of analytics alongside our core mission, perhaps they'll start to see the full picture. Sounds like you're riding the fine line of selling out, she remarked, her voice steady but hesitant. Maybe, he admitted, but sometimes you have to play their game to change it, right? Show them we can align ethical progress with profitability. Michael felt a surge of renewed energy as they brainstormed together, focusing on projections, user feedback from similar markets, and potential partnerships that could elevate the credibility of their initiative. They pored over numbers, dissecting market trends, aiming to create a compelling narrative that couldn't easily be dismissed. As they worked, the office buzzed with a rhythm of creativity. Colleagues wandered in and out, some chatting about mundane tasks, others brainstorming ideas. Each voice mingled in a cacophony of innovation, fueling Michael's energy. For the first time, he felt the stirrings of progress coalescing around them. Hours passed, and they had crafted a robust presentation. But as they reviewed their work, dread gnawed at Michael. Was it enough? Would his infusion of passion and values hold water against the opponents lurking in the boardroom? The stakes were high. Embracing their mission might still result in disappointing those focused solely on the fiscal bottom line. Michael, Lily said, breaking through his spiral of thought. What's the worst that could happen? He took a breath, feeling the weight of her question. Failure. It's more than disheartening, it's deflating every dream I've worked for. But what if it leads to something better? What if you push through, and it turns out the board isn't as closed-minded as you fear? Her confidence sparked something deep within him. He remembered why he started this journey, the thrill of redefining the workplace, inspiring the next generation. Without realizing it, the conversation had rekindled a fire in his chest, transforming doubt into resolve. Then let us make sure they see this as a real opportunity, not just a risk, he replied, meeting her gaze with newfound determination. As the days faded into one another, Michael prepared for the next board meeting. A voice whispered deep within him, what if this venture not only transformed the company but him, as a leader? He envisioned not just presenting a project but performing an act of defiance against complacency. Yet, there lingered an unsettling feeling, that despite all efforts, failure lingered just out of reach. Walking into the boardroom again, he understood he needed one more thing, a powerful personal insight to anchor his argument. What lesson had the challenges taught him about leadership? What was he truly willing to fight for? It was then that the door swung open, and an unexpected visitor stepped in, his heart pounding faster at the sight. The moment had arrived, the stakes higher than ever, but so was the thrill of clarity. Now, it was time to confront not only the board but the real test of his leadership journey. The unexpected visitor strode into the boardroom with an air of casual confidence, a stark contrast to the tension that had gripped Michael's stomach. It was Nora, one of the interns from the marketing department, hastily brushing a strand of disheveled hair behind her ear. The sight of her made Michael's heart race, and as she looked around the polished conference table, the digital display ready for pitch deck, he sensed a ripple of urgency between them. Michael, she started, her voice steady but tinged with vulnerability. I need to talk to you. It's important. He glanced at the clock. Time was slipping away like sand through his fingers. He could feel the weight of anticipation building in the room, but there was something in Nora's eyes that made him pause. Should he grant her this moment, even as the board gathered outside, ready to scrutinize every word he uttered? All right, he replied, lowering his voice. What is going on? Nora bit her lip. I found out last night that my housing situation fell through. I thought I could manage, but now I'm stuck. The truth stunned Michael. Here was a bright young mind on the brink of her career, facing a crisis. He felt a pang of guilt. The very passion he poured into the company, into building something that represented hope and progress, was about to collide with the reality that existed directly in front of him. Nora, I'm so sorry to hear that. Have you got a plan? Her eyes flickered with uncertainty. I thought about hotels, but I can't afford them. I don't want to let my internship slip away, but I don't know how I can focus on work. The conversation sent Michael into a spiral of introspection. The company aimed to create a compassionate culture, yet here a member of the team was facing homelessness while he worried about the board's numbers and metrics. Would he be just another executive ignoring the real people behind the jobs? "Nora, listen," he began, the words tumbling out, shaped by a sudden resolve. "You shouldn't have to choose between survival and your career. Let us figure something out." "Are you sure?" she asked, skepticism lacing her tone. "Absolutely. You shouldn't have to struggle while we're building a supportive environment. It's contradictory to everything we stand for," he said, a sense of urgency creeping into his voice. As she spoke, Michael began to realize this was more than an isolated incident, it was a reflection of a system that had been failing young professionals across the board. If he truly wanted to enact change, he couldn't just present metrics, he needed to live those values, starting right now. "We'll find you a safe place to stay, even temporarily. I'll connect you with HR and will ensure the company supports you through this. You can focus on your work, not your survival," he continued, feeling an unfamiliar warmth spread through him. Nora's brow softened, and for the first time, he saw gratitude bloom within her. "Thank you, Michael. This means more than I can say." Time was no longer the enemy, instead, it pooled with purpose that deepened his determination. The challenge of the board meeting felt trivial compared to the real-world impact this conversation had begun. It struck him the connection between professional aspirations and personal realities was the cornerstone of leadership. "I'd like to share this story during my presentation," he said unexpectedly. "It's critical to demonstrate that our initiative is about real lives and experiences." "But the board might not see it that way," she cautioned, her concern evident. "They'll need to. I'll take the chance. I owe it to you and everyone like you," he replied, feeling a surge of empowerment. The boardroom door creaked open, and he braced himself for a battle of numbers and projections. Yet, as he stepped forward, he could now visualize the power of his integrity framing the narrative he was about to present. He understood this journey was not just his, it was theirs as well. "I'll make them understand," he whispered under his breath, stepping boldly into the room. As the door closed behind him, a question ignited like a match in the dark. What would happen if the board reacted not with skepticism but with commitment to change? With this new resolve propelling him forward, he was ready to find out. Michael stood in the boardroom, the polished glass walls encasing him like a pressure chamber. This meeting had been rehearsed to perfection, the typical flow of facts and figures, the strategic arguments meant to persuade hardened minds. But now he was armed with something more potent than numbers, a story that could redefine their mission. As his colleagues settled into their seats, he locked eyes with Nora's earnest face, which lingered in his thoughts like an unshakable weight. What if this was the moment to challenge not only the board's perception but the very culture of the organization? He cleared his throat, a new awareness flooding his veins. "Thank you all for being here today," he began, his voice steady even as doubt gnawed at the back of his mind. "I want to talk about our current initiative and the metrics we've been reviewing, but first, I need to share something personal." Confused glances traversed the table. He could sense the skepticism, the same old concerns about professionalism seeping into the atmosphere. But he pressed on. "Last night, I learned about the struggles of one of our interns, Nora. She's been facing a crisis that threatens her future here." He paused, reading their reactions. Some leaned in, intrigued, others remained stiff, unwilling to deviate from the script. "This isn't just another statistic, it's a real individual who embodies the challenges our young professionals face today." A murmur rippled through the room. Questions about appropriateness hung unspoken in the air. He pressed forward, uncaring of their discomfort. "What we need to confront is not just our quarterly revenue, but how our culture supports the individuals who drive that revenue. How can we be a leader if we neglect the very people striving to grow with us?" Michael felt his palms sweat as passion surged within him. Nora's situation transformed in his mind, erupting into a larger accusation against complacency. If we're serious about fostering talent, we need to create a framework where no one has to choose between their immediate needs and their professional ambitions. One of the executives, Karen, a veteran in the boardroom, furrowed her brow. "Michael, this is certainly a heartfelt moment, but we're here to discuss projections and efficacy. Not everyone can benefit from corporate kindness," she said, her tone clipped. "Perhaps that's the problem," he countered, the challenge igniting his resolve. "What if we positioned ourselves differently? What if our commitment to our interns translated into tangible support for their well-being? Imagine if every young employee felt safe enough to focus on their contributions, without the looming shadow of personal crises." He could see the dismissive confidence in Karen's demeanor quavering, if only slightly. "Are you proposing we establish an emergency fund for situations like Nora's?" she asked, skepticism wrestling with curiosity. "Exactly," he replied, emboldened by the potential he could sense in the room. "Consider the loyalty we could cultivate by actually caring about our people. We would stand not just as an influential name in the market, but as a transformative force in professional development standards." An intense silence hung over the boardroom. He watched as the executives exchanged glances, weighing the possible repercussions of his vision. "Let's start with a pilot program," Michael suggested. "Something small, tangible. I'm willing to allocate a portion of my budget to test this model. If it works, we could revolutionize not just our company, but the industry." Could he really pull this off? Fear danced at the edge of his thoughts, but he embraced it. The stakes were too high to retreat. The challenges of Nora and others like her deserved a brave response. It felt like an awakening, a potential shift in purpose that could define his career. "And if it fails?" Karen probed, her brow still knitted in disapproval. "Then we learn. But if we do nothing, we create a culture that turns away from its own employees in their time of need," he shot back, adrenaline surging through him. Michael was crashing through the boundaries of acceptable discourse, risking his reputation for a cause greater than himself. This decision moment would define him: commitment or cowardice? The door to the boardroom felt heavier behind him, a reminder that whatever happened next would set the trajectory for more than just a single proposal. Would they reject his call to action or embrace a new way of thinking? As the silence stretched, Michael realized he was standing at a precipice, staring into an unknown. Whatever response lay ahead, acceptance, skepticism, or outright dismissal, would trigger a transformation he could hardly fathom. "Let's take a vote," he stated firmly, sensing urgency course through him again. What had begun as a gesture of goodwill for Nora was now a chance to usher in revolutionary change. Would they ally with him, or would he face the paradox of isolation, leading an organization unwilling to step beyond its comfort zone? Michael stood before the boardroom's attention, waiting for a response that felt as if it were dragging through molasses. The anticipation hung in the air, thick, pulsating, and daunting. He knew the stakes were high, but did he comprehend the weight of his words? Each eye fixed on him bore the scrutiny of doubt, challenge, and perhaps, a flicker of intrigue. "Let's take a vote." The words felt bold, empowered, even defiant. But now, standing before the executives, Michael wrestled with the gnawing sensation that perhaps he had crossed an irrefutable boundary. This was uncharted territory, veering away from the safety of predetermined corporate language. After a long pause, Karen finally broke the stillness. "This isn't a charity, Michael. It's a business. We can't simply hand out funds with no strategy behind it." Her tone was firm, her gaze unyielding. The others nodded in reluctant agreement, reaffirming the invisible walls he had begun to dismantle. He inhaled sharply, refusing to let her words bury him in a pit of despair. "But Karen, that's precisely my point. Investing in our people is a strategy, one that aligns personal growth with professional excellence. If we ignore their struggles, we risk losing not only talent but also the core purpose of our mission." "Spare us the rhetoric, Michael," interjected John, a sharp-tongued analyst with decades of experience. People struggle, that's life. How does that justify using corporate resources to cushion them? He smirked, as if relishing the discomfort he spread across the table. Michael's heart raced, the challenge igniting a fire within him. It justifies it because we have the power to change narratives. We can create an environment that cultivates resilience rather than one that leaves young professionals floundering. If we take action now, we can show that we are a company with conscience. He could see a wrenching within the boardroom, a clash of old ideals against a fresher vision. Some executives shifted in their seats, pensive and thoughtful. Others remained staunch, drifting into the familiar comfort of skepticism. We might risk losing investors, Karen replied, holding his gaze with cold precision. Or we might gain a workforce committed to our cause and the brand it symbolizes, he countered, passion fueling his words. He began to feel the weight of possibility pressing down against the searing doubt. What if they shared their stories? What if we learned from Nora, from others like her who find themselves in precarious positions? It might just be the innovative edge we need to advance. A heavy tension brewed, but beneath it was the hum of potential. Michael couldn't suppress the vision of a company that valued its people, a place where initiatives were deep-rooted in authenticity and responsibility. Let us start small, just a pilot program with minimal investment. If it fails, then we can pivot, and I'll take the responsibility. But if it flourishes, he trailed off, the room pulsating with uncertainty and possibility. Very well. Let us take the vote, Karen finally relented, her tone mixed with reluctant intrigue, signaling the chance for a shift. In the ensuing silence, Michael could sense the energies in the room sparking with renewed vigor. A moment of decision sprawled before them. Would they emerge together from the cocoon of fear? Would they embrace the inadvertent culture shift that came with empathetic leadership? As the votes were counted, anticipation tightened around his throat. He was standing at a crossroads, feeling a careful but burgeoning determination rise within. He understood that real leadership was not merely about strategies and profits. It lay in the capacity to empathize, to enact change even when the road ahead seemed shrouded in uncertainty. At that moment, he questioned whether he was ready not only to present and defend ideas but also to embody them. No longer was he just an employee advocating for change, he could feel the fabric of his professional identity transforming. He wasn't merely a participant in corporate mechanics, he was nurturing an evolution, forging a path through personal resolve and a vision of true camaraderie. As anticipation built, and the world outside the boardroom hummed with the pulse of life, he knew the coming response would tether his journey. The decision of this board could dictate whether he would stand atop a monumental shift or drift back into silence. What if, he whispered to himself, this is the moment I step into my own leadership? Before he could digest that thought further, Karen leaned forward, her expression shifting. Michael, I have to ask, are you prepared to lead this initiative? The weight of her question struck like a bolt of lightning, revealing a new kind of challenge ahead. He inhaled deeply, feeling the boundary he was about to cross. That moment would reveal more than just his leadership capacity, it would demand a reckoning of his own purpose. Would he rise to the occasion, or would he falter at a pivotal juncture? Michael's heart raced as he processed Karen's question. The walls of the boardroom felt as if they were closing in on him, a stifling reminder of the responsibility that could soon rest on his shoulders. He had thrust himself into the spotlight, and now he had to confront the fact that this wasn't just about a proposal, it was about leading a movement where empathy would redefine their corporate values. Yes. I'm ready, he replied, the words escaping before he could withdraw them. His resolve solidified with each syllable, molding confidence from the uncertainty swirling within. Karen's brow raised slightly, implying surprise tinged with skepticism. Led? This is uncharted territory. You could face serious pushback. I understand, Michael said, leaning slightly forward. But imagine if we set a precedent. We not only build an engaged workforce but ignite a culture that thrives on responsibility and connection. The board members nodded, skepticism mingling with curiosity. Michael took a moment to absorb the different faces around him, each representing a voice of experience, caution, or ambition. Every one of them was a piece of the puzzle he needed to fit together without losing focus on the picture he envisioned. As their discussion transitioned from voting to brainstorming potential structures for the pilot program, Michael felt a shift within himself. Here lay the intricate dance of leadership, balancing assertiveness with approachability, being directive yet open to collaboration. This wasn't merely about winning the board's favor, it was about nurturing radical change by attuning to the emotional undercurrents of an organization too long steeped in tradition. What type of content is acceptable for this program? John queried, still harboring a hint of disbelief. We can't just rely on goodwill. I propose storytelling sessions, Michael replied, inspiration surging. We invite employees to share their experiences and challenges. We can tailor resources that resonate with their needs, rather than imposing one-size-fits-all solutions from the top down. The idea struck a chord, and for the first time, the room buzzed not with dissent but intrigue. Michael observed their nods, small but significant, fostering a budding energy that hinted at shifting mindsets. Each executive, once entrenched in skepticism, appeared eligible for expansion within their own views. However, alongside this burgeoning momentum lurked a shadow of doubt in Michael's mind. He often faced the harsh truth that personal and professional lives clashed, and many employees remained fearful of revealing their vulnerabilities. What if storytelling devolved into a mere surface-level task? How could he ensure that these sessions birthed genuine change rather than empty promises? He decided to tackle this by positioning himself alongside the employees. By creating an atmosphere of confidence, he could lead from a place of solidarity. Perhaps I should share first, he suggested boldly. To show that vulnerability is welcomed here. Their eyes widened. Leaning into his own story, a montage of setbacks, insecurities, and humble beginnings might dismantle any perception of him as a disconnected corporate figure. The initiative would thrive on authenticity, and if he allowed them to see his fallibility, it might just inspire them to share their paths too. As he spoke, he felt a mixture of anxiety and liberation. The act of sharing would inevitably pull apart old barriers, clearing a pathway toward trust. But there lingered thoughts of what revealing himself truly meant. Would the company's culture transform, or would the renewed openness reveal hidden fractures? With these thoughts swirling in his mind, Michael understood he'd entered a personal crucible of growth. The professional challenges ahead required more than strategic proposals. They demanded tough conversations, introspection, and courage to confront hidden biases both within the organization and himself. The board meeting drew to a close, leaving Michael with a heady mix of elation and trepidation. His vision began to crystallize, yet he couldn't shake the feeling that the real work was just beginning. As the members filed out, Karen approached him, her expression now softened. Remember, leading means standing firm against resistance. You might find your initiatives met with hesitance longer than expected. Are you fully prepared for that? Regardless of opposition, I will keep coming back to our shared humanity, Michael responded, determination threading through his voice. That is the heart of this initiative, and I won't shy away from it. As he watched her leave, the rush of adrenaline faded to a low hum in his chest. He had navigated a significant milestone today, but a deep-seated anxiety gripped him. His awakening might not resonate as profoundly as he hoped. What if, in this pursuit of empathetic leadership, the path led him to confront a darkness he hadn't anticipated? A confrontation was looming that would challenge not just his values but also the reality of the organization he sought to transform. When would that confrontation arise, and how would it reshape the narrative he was committed to crafting? Michael stood at the precipice of change, the echoes of the boardroom debate reverberating in his mind. The outcome of the meeting had shifted the trajectory of his career, but the real work which would determine success or failure had only just begun. As he exited the building, a sense of tangible possibility hung in the air, mixed with a hint of apprehension regarding the reactions he would encounter. This wasn't just about implementing a new program, it was about fundamentally altering the culture within the organization. The following weeks unfolded in a whirlwind of strategic planning and storytelling sessions. Each day brought challenges, resistance undercurrents, and moments of breakthrough. He led with intention, fostering an environment that balanced rigorous accountability with authentic connection. The pilot program was launched, sparking curiosity amongst employees and the board alike. The ground was shifting, albeit slowly, cracks began to form in the shell of skepticism. As the storytelling sessions gathered momentum, Michael experienced profound moments of vulnerability. Employees began to share their journeys, personal struggles, aspirations, and the barriers they faced. Each story opened the floodgates, revealing a tapestry of untold experiences that had long been hidden beneath the surface. These intimate revelations reinforced Michael's belief that empathy could catalyze profound change. He had transformed from a cautious executive into an active participant in the collective dialogue. The act of listening and facilitating allowed him to embrace a new mantle of leadership, one built on collaboration rather than command. He took special care to incorporate the voices of those emerging talents like Nora, balancing the narrative of corporate success with the human experiences driving that success. In one transformative session, while sharing his own story of early struggles and familial challenges, Michael observed a seismic shift. The room, once filled with apprehensive glances, now radiated a shared commitment to each other's growth. With every recounting of a struggle, walls fell, boundaries blurred, and a community began to coalesce around a unified vision. Yet, despite these victories, Michael remained acutely aware of the inevitable backlash from the board. What had begun as a conversation of empathy was encountering the steel resolve of traditional business metrics. The upcoming quarterly review loomed, pressing down on him like a dark cloud. The board anticipated hard data showing the results of their initiative. Would they be willing to invest further, or would they retreat back into the familiar safety of profits over people? Michael's resolve remained intact. He reminded himself why he had taken this leap, to redefine success not just as financial gain, but as the cultivation of talent and genuine engagement. He spent the evenings poring over data, aligning storytelling outcomes with quantifiable metrics that would speak to the skeptics. Each late-night session fueled his understanding of the intersections between personal narratives and corporate objectives. The day of the quarterly review arrived, and with it, a palpable tension filled the boardroom. Sitting across from the executives who had previously challenged him felt less daunting now. He was armed not just with numbers but with a compelling vision and a renewed sense of who he was as a leader. Opening the meeting, Michael drew on the stories he had gathered, weaving them into a narrative that encapsulated their initiative's impact. He presented quantitative successes alongside qualitative testimonials, emphasizing that their stories weren't mere anecdotes, they were representations of successful engagement, heartbeats of the organization. As he spoke, he could feel the room shift. There was an undeniable undercurrent of respect emanating from the very faces that once wore skepticism. A pivotal moment arrived when Karen, the staunchest opponent of his approach, unexpectedly spoke up. "Michael," she began, "while I remain cautious, I have to admit that your initiative is shifting perceptions among our staff. Your results, though preliminary, offer a revealing insight into our workforce's resilience." "Yes," another board member chimed in, "if we can sustain this momentum, we might redefine the concept of corporate responsibility. This isn't just philanthropy, it's investing in our fundamental workforce." The tide began to turn as Michael watched the room morph from a battleground to a collaborative space, each member resonating with the light of transformation. They began to discuss ways to deepen their investment in this initiative rather than shun it. Joy surged within him as he embraced this unexpected validation, a recognition of his own growth and the change he had ignited. As the meeting concluded, Michael felt a sense of profound fulfillment. The immediate conflict had transformed into a forward movement, one that not only impacted the organization but also redefined how he saw himself within it. He had pushed through layers of resistance, discovering his voice along the way. It wasn't just about error margins and shareholder returns anymore, it was about empowering people, nurturing their stories, and leading with heart. Leaving the boardroom, he was met by Lily, who had been keenly waiting in the hallway. "You did it!" she exclaimed, eyes bright with excitement. "Yes, and it's only the beginning," Michael replied, a smile breaking through the seriousness that had occupied him for months. While the path ahead remained challenging, he was now solidly aware that real transformation came from vulnerability, courage, and a commitment to human connection. Michael Hartman, once the driven CEO shaped by his father's legacy, felt a profound shift in identity. He was now a leader emboldened to challenge the status quo. One who understood that true excellence lay in harnessing the collective voices of those around him. Today, closure wasn't merely the end of a chapter, it signaled the start of a lifelong journey toward empathetic leadership and a future where success existed at the intersection of integrity and humanity. You need to subscribe now to witness more of these transformative journeys. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and amplify stories of overcoming the odds. Don't wait even one more second. Comment below with your reactions and theories about this ending and share instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful conclusion. Your engagement makes a difference.